Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again. I am here to review Monster Blood 4. As you guys know, this is the last one in the series, both the Monster Blood and the Goosebumps series. And it is a pretty bizarre book to end the Goosebumps books on, to say the least. I mean, this feels kind of like I don't know, like, it really does feel like he was just out of ideas and he just did this and kind of meant for it to be fun and funny and not really taking it seriously. But the thing is that I actually really like this book for some reason. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was really hilarious, and it's not scary at all, of course. It really doesn't even feel like a Goosebumps book. It just feels like a dumb, stupid sci-fi parody or satire, whatever. I think parody for this one. The story is pretty goofy, and of course, for some reason after the second one, it just became all about this. It's sort of like a sitcom. Like, it's like a Monster Blood sitcom. You have Evan, who's as idiotic as usual. You have Andy, who's idiotic as usual. You have Conan, the bully, who's just kind of like, he's a bully in the neighborhood. And then you have Kermit, the cousin. He always needs babysitting, and he's always doing weird experiments where he screws things up with the experiments and plays tricks on people, and very weird. And it's like every book is the same, where there's always like, it's like a formula at this point with the Monster Blood series, and I think that is probably the worst part about this book, is that honestly, like, it's really sad because the first book is a very scary, thrilling, horrific, well, it's not like a extreme horror, but it is definitely a good horror book. And the second one has a really good dark horror build-up. You really feel like this is a good series. But then in the third one, it's goofy all the way through. And then in the fourth one, it's goofy all the way through. And it's like, why? This is such a shame. You had this great series, and you completely ruined it. Why did you have to change the tone from dark to light? Like, why couldn't you just keep it dark? You could have moments of lightness. Like, there's a lot of great moments of lightness, even in like the first book. You know, you had the bullies who were twins, and they were pretty goofy characters, even though they were mean and evil. But the plot of this book is basically like, for some reason, Andy has blue monster blood. Why is there blue monster blood? What is it for? Where did it come from? Who knows? It's like, it's so weird. It's like Andy, it's bizarre. It's like, what is going on here? It's been 4 times now, 3 or 4 times now, where you've had problems with Monster Blood, and then you have Andy coming in, and she brings back more Monster Blood. It's like, see, this is why kids don't want to hang out with girls, because they do things like this. I mean, I think one of the main reasons why I dislike this book more than the first one and the second one is because this book series, out of all of them in the series, I really feel like the relationship between Andy and Evan is a big strong point of the series. Like, I really got into their relationship in the first, the second book. I really, really liked that. That was like one of my favorite things about any Goosebumps book. And in the third and fourth, it's like, okay, they're just goofy friends. And then you have this goofy Kermit nerd cousin. And then you have this goofy bully. And it's just everything is goofy and funny and dumb. And it's like, why? Like, why, Earl Stein? Why? But the thing is that even though you're saying, like, okay, this sounds terrible. In fact, a lot of people consider this to be the worst Goosebumps book ever. I would agree that if, I just read the Wikipedia page to refresh my memory of the plot, because a lot of the plot, like with all these books, I've really forgotten them because I read them back last summer. So I've forgotten a lot of the specifics of the plots. But if you look at the basic plot, it is terrible. Like, there's no denying that. Like, you have this weird plot where you have this Kermit, and he's just a jackass, and he invents like a hair growing formula for some reason, and other stuff with it. There's an electric fence, all sorts of weird things. And so then you have this blue monster blood, and somehow they accidentally spill it somewhere, and of course it starts causing trouble. The unique thing about this one is that there's multiple blobs. Usually in these books, there's only one blob, or there's one person or creature who gets affected by the blob. Well, in this one, there's a lot of blobs, and it's almost like a comedy. Like, to me, it is deliberately a comedy, because you have these kids, you have the monster blood. The monster blood drinks water out of a hose, and then breaks up into two, and it's just really goofy and funny. And then these kids, they like put it in a garbage bag, and it really gets hilarious. Like, I laughed a lot reading this book. I really, really enjoyed it, like, as a comedy. This is like a great Goosebumps comedy book, in my opinion. It's probably the only book in the series where it really feels like this is meant to be laughed at and ridiculed, hopefully. Otherwise, I would say that R.L. Stine was doing some kind of drugs, and he made a big boo-boo. But it's funny because they put the monster blood, like, in the bathroom, and they, like, leave the garbage bag open so that the monster blood can get out, and it's pretty hilarious. And then the monster blood is, like, everywhere, and it's so funny. Like, it's inside this and that, and it's like morphing into these shapes, and it's hilarious. And they have trouble, like, catching them, and they're running all over the place, and then they get into the hair formula, I think, and they get hairy, and it's fucking hilarious. And finally, of course, the problem gets solved, and I think there were some dream sequences, in every Monster Blood book except the first one. There's always some weird dream sequences where they do something extreme with the monster blood, and then it turns out it's a dream. Well, this book, I do admit that it ends pretty badly. Like, the ending, it starts off pretty good because the monster blood actually eats itself. And I kind of thought that was cool. That was a cool idea, because this is obviously some different type of monster blood. And so I thought it was a cool twist that instead of the monster blood just eating other things and people, that the monster blood actually ate itself. I thought that was a great idea and concept, and it actually could have worked really well. Like, honestly, I really love the idea of, like, multiple monster blood blobs, and, like, them all being, like, different characters. And this kind of reminds me of Critters. It's very much like Critters, like the Gremlins, this one. And then at the end, there's this really, really goofy over-the-top explanation where it turns out this professor, doctor guy for the military, he was doing experiments, and the monster blood, he wanted to use the monster blood for underwater warfare, and so I guess that's why it was blue. I thought that was really stupid. And out of all the finales, I gotta say, like the first one, you had the really good scary twist at the end, very dark twist, and it was a good finale. The second one had that great finale where he's fighting his pet hamster. And then the third one had an okay finale where it involved like basically a BLM situation but with monster blood. And I thought that was pretty good in concept. But this finale where you have this long explanation that feels like it's out of a straight-to-DVD science fiction movie, that's the finale for the last Monster Blood book. What a completely cheap and stupid finale. And the worst thing about this book is that there's no definitive ending to it. Like, it doesn't feel like this is the last Goosebumps book. It doesn't feel like it is the last Monster Blood book. It feels like I don't know what it feels like, an episode out of a sitcom. And so then at the very end, it just feels like it could go on. There could be Monster Blood 5, Monster Blood 6, Monster Blood 7, and there could be more and more and more, and it could just happen all over again with these stupid characters. And so I thought that was probably the worst part, because he could have just been slacking off and joking around with the first 2 acts of the book. But at the end of the book, he at least should have ended it with a good ending, taken it seriously, and had some sort of a conclusion, had some sort of a hint that at least that the 2 characters are going to get together. And I don't know, the Monster Blood, it really is a disaster, because that opens up so many more questions. Well, that was the blue Monster Blood. What about the green? Is there a yellow Monster Blood? Is there a pink Monster Blood? Is it like the Green Lanterns with Monster Blood? Like, what is it with the different Monster Bloods? How did it all happen? Why is it that this is the main issue, is that for some reason you can buy Monster Blood in a store, you can get it anywhere around the world, but the only people who have trouble with it are these specific kids. There's no reported incident of a Japanese girl eating Monster Blood so that she can attack another fat Japanese girl or something like that. There's nothing like that. And so it just begs the question of, like, why all this plot convenience? You should, if you knew that this is the last Goosebumps book, if you knew that this is the last Monster Blood book, then you should have had all these explanations or something. Because it's one thing to have a living dummy who causes trouble and he wants to enslave little girls for some reason that we don't really know, quote unquote. And that's fine, because anyone could just create a dummy, a magical dummy, and it's not so hard of an explanation to think about happening. But with the Monster Blood, this is like 4 times now, and now we have a different color Monster Blood too. And it's like, it does not make sense. It's bizarre, it's weird, but still, it was a very entertaining book. I would definitely read this one again. It was hilariously bad. It was so bad that it's good. I would give this book, it is tough, because if I give this a B- like I want to, then I'm knowingly putting it ahead of Cuckoo Clock of Doom and other quote-unquote classic books, where I would say those are just C+, sorry. But I really have to go with what I think, And I really think that this book is a B minus. It's a very fun and funny book, and it's a hilariously bad book, and I don't think it's terrible at all in terms of, like, a lot of people really genuinely hate this book, and I can't identify with that because it's just too funny, and it's too goofy, and the characters are too goofy. It is bad objectively, though. It is bad, like, if you take away the comedy from it and just think about, like, oh, this is the last Goosebumps, the last Monster Blood. It is bad in terms of that. That's why it's not an A+. And how I would rank the Monster Blood series is, I would say, in fourth place is the third one. Completely pointless filler. They really could have done a lot better with that great concept. It really felt like a slap in the face, all the continuity errors. And then in third place, I would say, is Monster Blood 4. Although it is very fun, funny, and it has a lot of entertainment value, it is a very weak final Goosebumps book, and it is a terrible ending to the series, and it's nowhere near as good as the first two. And then in second place is the second one. It was a very good surprise when we found out that Andy would move to where he is, and that they would actually be the stars of the books together, because it was very worrying that he would have a new group of people, and it would just, to me, it wouldn't work. And it was really cool, the build up, and then the final fight between him and his hamster. That was very, very cool, but it was a little kiddish. And then in number one is Monster Blood 1, which is very dark and very atmospheric, and it is pretty serious, and it's a great book, a lot of adventure, fun, horror, science fiction. It's a very good book, and it is definitely one of the best Goosebumps books, because it has everything that you could want in a Goosebumps book. There's not one element from a Goosebumps book that's missing in Monster Blood. That's why it was so shocking when R.L. Stine, for for whatever anniversary of the series, that he just puts the stupid slappy face on there. It's like, that's a complete slap in the face. It should be all the creatures, or it really should be Monster Blood, because to me, the first Monster Blood book is more of an important Goosebumps book than the first Night of the Living Dummy. And so that's it. And please like and subscribe, and tell Safi that she's bald. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.